You know the old saying, right? In a casino, the house always wins. We've all heard it. It feels like this fundamental law of the universe, baked right into the math of every single game. But what if it isn't? What if I told you there are people who have legally, cleverly, and consistently broken that rule? Okay, let's really get into this. Because the story of beating the house, it's not really about luck. It's this incredible battle of wits between brilliant minds and these billion-dollar corporations. It's a high-stakes game that is constantly redefining the very line between a winning strategy and an actual crime. So this is the whole thing right here, this distinction. On one side, you've got cheating, using a hidden device, marking cards, messing with a roulette wheel, that kind of stuff. It's illegal because you are physically changing the game. But then there's this other thing, advantage play. And this is where things get really interesting. Advantage play is using nothing but your own brain and just paying close attention to find and exploit an edge. It's not illegal, but let me tell you, casinos absolutely hate it. And the person who first proved this was even possible on a huge scale, well, he wasn't some shadowy gambler. He was a math professor. This is Ed Thorp. His philosophy was pretty simple. Just don't gamble. Instead, find a game where you can actually turn the odds in your favor. And if you can do that, well, it's not gambling anymore. It's an investment. He would look at the casino floor and just see a whole series of math problems waiting to be solved. See, back in the 60s, pretty much everyone thought blackjack was pure chance. But Thorpe, with his background in math and physics, he realized something huge. The game had a memory. It's not like a slot machine, right? The odds in blackjack are constantly changing with every single card that gets dealt from the deck. And this is the heart of his system, card counting. And in theory, it's kind of simple. You assign a value to cards as they come out. Low cards are +1, high cards, like tens and aces, are -1. You just keep a running total in your head. So when that count gets high, it means the deck is loaded with high cards, which is fantastic for the player. That's your signal to bet big. Now, Thorpe didn't just test his theory out, he published it for everyone to see. His book, Beat the Dealer, it just flew off the shelves. And all of a sudden, you have tens of thousands of people showing up in Vegas trying to use his system. The casinos? They were panicking. They had absolutely no idea how to deal with players who had a legit mathematical edge against them. The casinos just started screaming foul play. They called it cheating. But the law in Nevada? It was crystal clear. Thorpe and his followers weren't changing the game. They weren't using any devices. They were just thinking. And using your brain, no matter how good you are at it, is not a crime. But while Thorpe beat the house with pure math, others, well, they would find a way to beat it with something else entirely. Negotiation. So, years later, another player finds a totally different way to get an edge. Not with complicated math, but with a silver tongue and just perfect timing. The amount of money we're talking about here is just staggering. In only 6 months, a guy named Don Johnson walks away from 3 Atlantic City casinos with over $15 million. And the craziest part? The casinos had basically invited him to do it. Johnson's big secret wasn't card counting. Nope. It was taking advantage of a moment of weakness. See, after the 2008 financial crisis, casinos were absolutely desperate to get high rollers in the door, the whales, the people who would bet massive amounts of money. Johnson made himself look like one of them, but he told them he had a few conditions. He negotiated some of the most player-friendly rules anyone had ever seen. I mean, he got a 20% rebate on his losses. That means if he had a bad day, the casino just gave him 1/5 of his money back. He also got them to change the game's rules for him, like making the dealer stand on a soft 17. By negotiating all these little things, he basically crushed the house edge down to almost nothing. He turned a game of chance into a coin flip that, in the long run, he just couldn't lose. Okay, so using your brain is legal. Negotiating better terms is legal. But what happens when the strategy is about exploiting a tiny physical flaw in the game itself? This brings us to a really cool technique called edge sorting. So get this. Some decks of cards have these tiny accidental mistakes on the back from the printing press. The pattern on one long edge might be just a little different from the other. An edge sorter can spot these flaws and then trick the dealer into turning all the high-value cards one way and the low-value cards the other way. It's like giving themselves X-ray vision into the deck. And right here is where the law just goes in 2 completely different directions. In the US, the courts have usually sided with players who are just using mental strategies. But in a huge case in the UK involving the famous gambler Phil Ivey, a London court ruled that edge sorting was cheating. They said it was an interference with the process of the game, even though Ivey himself never actually touched the cards. And the biggest thing to come out of that UK ruling was this: you don't actually have to be dishonest to be a cheat. The court basically argued that by manipulating the game to get an unfair advantage, Ivey was cheating. It didn't matter if he honestly thought what he was doing was okay. This one decision created two totally different legal realities for players, all depending on what side of the Atlantic they were on. So, faced with all these threats from mathematicians, from expert negotiators, from people with eagle eyes, the casinos didn't just wait for the law to save them. They started their own arms race. Yeah, the casinos fought back hard, and their tactics just got more and more advanced. To stop Thorp, they started using multiple decks of cards. They even nicknamed them Professor Stoppers, just to make counting harder. Later on, when technology got better, they pushed to make it a felony and to use a computer to help you. And today, they use incredibly sophisticated facial recognition software to spot known advantage players the second they walk through the door, so they can kick them out before they even place a bet. But here's the final and kinda ironic twist in this whole cat and mouse game. While casinos fight tooth and nail to stop players from getting a legal edge, history is absolutely full of documented cases of the house itself cheating. And I'm talking about everything from rigged roulette wheels and loaded dice, to dealers doing false shuffles and even slot machines programmed to pay out less than the legal minimum. And that just brings us right back to our central question. In a game that involves brilliant strategists, really murky laws, and casinos that have their own long history of bending the rules, it's not always so clear who has the real advantage. It really makes you wonder, when you sit down at that table, who exactly is playing who?